All right, guys, we're up for our second interview this week. As you know, it's a busy week, lots of different guests. But today we're speaking to Mohan Jesudason. He is the CEO and Managing Director of X2M Connect. The ticker code there is also X2M. This is a company that specializes in delivering tech solutions to utility companies, or more specifically, they provide a SaaS platform and a network of smart meters to help their customers better manage things, everything from understanding usage to remote management, even these days with automated responses to various events. So for example, if there was a gas leak or a fire, the system will act in a self-directed kind of way. So the company itself operates across various countries in the APAC region, Taiwan, Japan, Australia, to name a few. In fact, the fleet of devices is now well in excess of 500,000 connected devices. That's doubled in the last, in fact, more than doubled in the last 2 years alone. And perhaps unsurprisingly, that's also been reflected in some of the key metrics, very much moving in the right direction, recurring revenue being one and gross profit, of course, being another. And interestingly enough, X2M really getting close to that break-even inflection point, which is, I know, is always a particular point of interest to our members. So we thought this is a perfect time to reach out to Mohan and get him to come along for a chat. And thank you for those that suggested that we do so. Now, as I always have to stress, in the regulatory environment that we live in, this is not advice. I've got to stress that. If, however, you do decide to transact, I would just caution you to use your brain a little bit here. There is liquidity issues in the sense that it's you're not going to find $10 million worth of stock changing hands on each given day. It's not a problem. Just maybe don't place a market order if that's what you're going to do. Just use your head a little bit here. And other than that, I'd really welcome some questions. You've got that Slido link there. So if anything occurs to you and you'd like me to put it to Mohan, I'll certainly do so. So all that is said and done, Mohan, thank you for your time today.
Andrew, thank you very much. And all of those who've taken the time to listen to us, thank you for joining, and well done on Andrew getting the pronunciation of my name right.
Thank you.
That's pretty good way to start.
Do you know what? I'll admit to what I did there. I popped it into ChatGPT and said, give me the phonetic spelling. And so, and we'll get onto AI, right, later on.
The world of artificial intelligence. There you go.
Game changer. So I said to you off air, I really want to build this up from the basics here. And I know it's hard. You've been involved with the business in one form or another for a while. And I know personally, you get so close to things. Sometimes it's just, things seem very obvious, but when someone is new to it, it requires a bit more of a sort of a basic explanation. I tried my hand at it with the introduction there, but maybe I know that there's more detail and more nuance to what the company does. Can you give me the high level sort of 40,000 foot view of X2M Connect and what you do, what problems you solve, the kind of customers that you have and what they're looking for?
Sure. So Andrew, we're a technology company. We have built a software platform that's wrapped up in a bunch of about 40 patents across about 40 countries. And what we do is we connect devices. So these are machines, sensors, smoke alarms, batteries, water, electricity, gas meters over the internet. We connect these over the internet, we collect data from them, and then we can go back and control those machines and sensors without any human intervention.
Oh, so this is, I really undersold it here. It's not just smart meters, it's a whole network of different devices.
It's a whole network. It can, the technology can go into any vertical market.
Yep.
Businesses that I've run have been successful in part because we are laser-like focused about what market we want to be in.
Yep.
We want to know that better than anyone else. We want to dominate it, and we want to own it.
Yes.
And we focus this business on the utility sector in the Asian region. The utility sector is a very large sector. It's B2B customers. They're blue chip customers. Andrew, they tend to pay their bills. In fact, in Korea, we get paid 70% of a contract up front.
Oh.
And they have very large consumer bases.
Yep.
And of course, we can match our offer to them to sit alongside the depreciation cycle of the water, electricity, gas meters, which is usually 8 or 10 years. So
Right.
most practical application is digitising utilities in the Asia Pacific region and now the Middle East.
I love that. So, I mean, we just, it's funny to think of how antiquated a lot of the tech is in the utility sector. And there's obviously a long way to go to sort of modernize things. I wanted to dig in a bit. I know there's correct me if I'm wrong, but probably really two sort of sides to the business, sort of the device sort of side and the platform software kind of side. Do you guys manufacture the devices yourself, or are you enabling existing devices to be able to network and connect with your platform?
Both. Water, electricity, gas meters, by and large, today don't have a communication cable.
Okay.
We have got a little chip that we can bolt onto a water meter, for example, and then start to collect data from them and control those. And that we can do that in about 5 minutes flat.
Wow.
If you've got a smart meter that can already communicate, already talk, then we can bring it onto our platform just like you would putting a SIM into your mobile phone.
Right.
And so the advantage to us is twofold. One is we haven't had to sit and wait for the day when all of these things can communicate, when everything's smart. So we've been able to get a march on the market.
Yep.
And the other is that because we can retrofit legacy meters and sensors, the business case for the enterprise customer is much, much better because their CapEx profile is so much better. And and that's held us in very, very good stead.
Okay. So let's walk through a typical customer journey here. You approach a utility and sort of say, hey, listen, we can solve a problem for you. The problem being is that we're going to give you much more information and control over things. And they say yes. What happens from there?
Okay. So firstly, the problem statement is this. So South Korea is a very, very good example with effectively the market leader there. Water meter reading is all manual. Meter readers are getting unionized. The meters are in pits underground, and so it's very hard to read a meter. And there's a lot of disputes and inaccurate billing.
Yep.
And they're losing about 20% of clean, billable water to undetected leaks. So our pitch to a municipality is that we can solve for that.
Yep.
We will automate your meter reading, and we will take away that bunch of foot soldiers that you've got, and that pays the bills.
Yep.
Okay, so it's a really, really compelling business case. And typically a municipality in South Korea would say, that sounds pretty good. If you went back 3 or 4 years ago, they'd say, look, we'd like to roll out about 500 households and see how it goes. And now they go straight into, look, that sounds good. And we've installed a couple of thousand households, and then you grow from there. And we have some really keen, really good upstream benefits as well. So we've automated meter reading, so their costs have dropped. Whenever there's a leak, we send off an alert, and the smarts are in the software, and it says, well, today is minus 15 degrees, and I won't shut off this pipe because when they fix it, it's going to burst when they start it up again. So we just slow them. Right. For trickle. And then in that country, if you're over 80 or disabled and living on your own, you're on the local municipality's database. And so we know that you are living on your own and you have a shower about 9 o'clock every morning, and it's now 11 o'clock and you haven't used water. And we send off an alert saying, hey, this person might be in trouble. Over the last 4 to 5 years, we've had about 200 cases of elderly and disabled people who've needed help. They've fallen down, they've had strokes, they've had heart attacks, so there's a lot of social benefits that come from technology as well.
And that wouldn't have been identified, I guess, unless there was someone who decided to pop in and do a welfare check.
Correct. Yeah. And the advantage to us is that because water is owned by the municipality sector over there, the local politicians love this stuff because all of a sudden this Australian company is on the front sheet of the next election campaign, right, about what they're doing in the social welfare place.
Yeah, wow, fascinating. And is it your technicians that go out and do the install, or do you sort of empower the customer itself to sort of do that?
we empower the customer to do that. So we
Right.
like to stay focused in
Yep.
technology and software space and hardware to the extent that needed.
Yep.
The customer is already changing over meters.
Yep.
So they've already got a labor force,
Yep.
but we give them the tools to do that, because if they do that efficiently, then that makes it, the customer journey with us so much better.
Well, plus it lets you scale a lot better too, I imagine.
It does, yeah. Andrew, when we started this journey about 7 or 8, I think 8 years ago, it took us 6 years to connect our first 50,000 households.
Yep.
And today we're connecting one about every 5 minutes.
Yeah, right. Well, let me ask you this, Mohan. This comes up a lot. In fact, just yesterday it came up again, but it's this a phenomena tends to be, hey, we've got a really good solution and it'll do all these things and it'll solve all these problems for you. But in the early days, you can't get arrested because no one wants to go first.
Yeah.
And it seems like a risk. And then you hit this inflection point where it's sort of like it seems less risky because you can point to, well, hey, here's a customer, here's a customer, here's a customer, and it just it de-risks it, and you tend to get that sort of acceleration in the S curve. Is that a phenomena that from where you sit, and where would you say you are on that S curve?
Yeah, look, you're exactly right. So this journey has been a decade, almost a decade long journey. The early part of breaking into new markets is not for the faint-hearted. You've got to do the work, you've got to do the due diligence. It's never a walk in the park. Yeah. And for those that put in and stick at it, the rewards come later on. And enterprise sales, initially, could be 8, 10, 12 months, the lead time from when you talk to customers.
Yep.
As you progress through the journey, all of those things end up being a barrier to entry for new entrants, right? And when we set off on our journey, we tend to do things in threes. It keeps life simple. We had a 3 horizon model for our business. Horizon 1 was to commercialize a platform and expand the patent portfolio. We did that 8, 9 years ago, and unfortunately, we did that well. Horizon 2 was what we call land and expand, which was to go on a land grab to secure as broad a base of enterprise and government customers as we could, whilst we had that advantage of being early to market. And our 76 enterprise and government customers are worth over $500 million to us in terms of personal marketing upfront revenues and around $40 million a year recurring. So that's what we call our organic business and our foundations. And that's a business that's been traveling well, it's been growing, our costs are coming down, margins are going up. And what's that allowed us to do is to take us into Horizon 3. So this is getting to the answer to your question, where on the curve are we? So we are at what we call the transformation phase of our journey, where we go from a modest company to a scaled-up company, and one that's getting deeper into the software space and the technology space. And of course, to that end, we've moved beyond our roots in Taiwan and Korea. We've recently entered the UAE, and that's our stepping stone to the broader Middle East region. We've done a lot of work in India, and we're ready to move into that market in the next 6 months or so. And so we're in a very good position on that maturity curve.
Yeah. Why? Oh, sorry, I'm getting some feedback. 1 sec. Why? There's a world. I mean, utilities are everywhere. So I guess the question is, why those particular markets? And sometimes, often you're going against sort of like home-based enterprise, and there seems to be that home field bias. Who are these upstarts from Australia? What have they got to offer, et cetera, et cetera. Was it just seen as the lowest hanging fruit, or what was the rationale behind those particular geographies?
Yeah, look, so when I took on this gig, part of the initial work was to say actually what vertical and what what region should we be in. We liked Asia for a whole bunch of reasons. One is Australia is a bit like the Switzerland. Everyone loves us. We might have had a stance with China, but fundamentally we have good relationships in the region, whether it be Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Indonesia, Malaysia. Whereas the Japanese have issues with the Chinese, who have issues with the Taiwanese, etc. So we're a bit like the Switzerland.
Yeah.
We can get to most countries within a day.
Yeah.
We're a multicultural society. 1 in 4 Australians have some foreign blood. And we understand Asia. We understand them better than the Americans do.
Yep.
So leaving that, if you like, call that the Australian DNA. Then let's look at the region itself. It's had GDP growth over a couple of decades that's been much better than the West. We've got a large bulge of educated middle class that are strong adopters of technology. They're urbanizing. Everyone's coming into the city, so the governments are spending on infrastructure, roads, bridges, and technology. And within them, you've got the utilities vertical that is a must-have for every country that's ready to migrate from an old analog world into a digital world. So it was, a market ready to buy, and relative to our home base, there were countries that were easier to penetrate, cheaper to penetrate. We only have 2 large population centers, Sydney and Melbourne. Relative, my customer in Japan has got more households than we have in Victoria.
Yeah.
And having said that, we are now focused on building a presence here in Australia with this technology will flow into this market, and we'll get some traction. And I'm really keen to have a strong Australian presence. And to that end, we've launched our first 2 smart communities in Chuka and Yarrawonga just last year.
So one of the challenges with all of that at the same time is that different geography, there's different time zones, there's different languages, different cultures, there's different regulations, and there's different staffing requirements as well. So that, not that there's no right or wrong answer here, but it's one of those things that I'm sure you have to kind of balance. Is there's a huge greenfield opportunity, but how fast do you run? Sometimes you can run too fast, and it's sort of like things get out of control. Where for you is that sweet spot in sort of making sure that each opportunity in every location is maximally sort of exploited without getting too far over the skis?
Look, Andrew, that's a very, very good question. 70-80% of success comes not from your product, not from your technology. It comes from the quality of your execution.
Yeah.
So we are very careful. We're very cautious in terms of our geographic expansion. We do a lot of due diligence. We make sure that we are ready. We're ready to move into a new market before we actually push the button. Every country that we move into, we make it an art form to know it. We've only got about 50 staff right through the group, and we speak 16 languages.
That's pretty cool.
And we understand our markets deeply. And increasingly, because I suppose we've got a proven track record, a proven product, a market need, we're now getting requests from companies to license our technology. So the Middle East, for example, we've licensed our technology to a third party. We're the Intel inside a lot of hardware in that country. And our partner is Middle Eastern.
Yep.
Locals. They're an established group of people, well-credentialed. And they do all the work. They do the sales, marketing, management, and we just charge a SaaS fee for every device that comes onto our platform, and we charge a SaaS fee for 10 years.
Yep.
So a water meter that comes onto our platform today is there. So over time, you should see a business that has got recurring, predictable revenues from these devices.
Well, I was gonna make that observation, like the nature of your clients. I think many would class them as acyclical. They're not going to be thrown around by the ups and downs of the economy. No one's going to turn their water and gas off because, unless things are really bleak, because the economy's in a bit of a funk.
Yeah.
So do you observe that sort of defensibility? Does that translate through to what you guys are doing? I imagine that these are customers that tend to be agnostic towards the economic cycle, or maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree. What do you think?
No, actually, no, you're not barking up the wrong tree, Andrew. There are two considerations here: whether it be water, electricity, or gas, you have to have it.
Yeah.
And you have to supply it. And so if there is a leak, you need to fix it, particularly in gas. There's public safety issues. And no matter what the economy is doing, you have to get on and do the job. And once you've started the journey of changing dumb stuff into smart stuff, it doesn't make sense to replace dumb stuff with dumb stuff.
Yep.
And so there is that degree of immunity. Having said that, government budgets vary from one economic cycle to another, so there might be more coordinated.
Yeah.
Separately to that, globally, economies have been challenged as a byproduct of the COVID era and that's taken place. And there is a real need to drive productivity improvement if you were to take on the wages, inflation, interest rate gap. In Australia, if we want real wages to move without driving further inflation, without keeping interest rates higher, then you've got to get productivity. And productivity improvement, two of the very big levers to drive productivity improvement is automation and artificial intelligence. Both of those require data. It requires large volumes of data, and we're the platform that delivers data for automation, artificial intelligence, machine learning, analytics. You name it, and it's an essential layer in the management of economies worldwide. So
Well, gosh, I got to tell you, that's another theme that's come up a lot lately is AI. So let's get into that now. And I guess the observation that I would make with it is there's two different ways to exploit the technology. There's the one that you use it because it just makes life easier and better, but it doesn't offer you any competitive edge. In the same way that email and the internet is great, but we've all got it. And then there's the companies, well, you tell me, potentially like X2M, where you have access to a data set that others don't have, which gives you it. So there's a distinction there. And I just be keen on your thoughts on that and how, or whether or not there is any competitive edge in having access to that data as you see it.
Yeah, look, there is a massive competitive edge. And there's a competitive edge in getting the right data and good data, if you like. So here's our speciality. Our one platform can connect any device, meter, sensor, battery, solar panel, inverters on the one platform. Right? And have them talk to each other and have them communicate with each other. That's our patent. So we can build once, we can accommodate a wide range of data generating devices to feed into artificial intelligence engines, right? And then go back and control them so we have a much richer application. And at a very simple level, Andrew, it might be a smoke alarm at a large shopping centre, detects smoke and shuts down all the gas in the shopping centre. Because it's spoken to the controller of the gas meters. In Taiwan, a gas meter that's shaking talks to the other gas meters around it. They're all different brands. That's our patent, the ability for them to do that. And says, jeepers, you're all shaking, there must be an earthquake. And three months ago, the Taiwan earthquake, we shut down 8,500 residences in 3 seconds.
Yes.
And so that's our payment. We can store our smarts centrally in the cloud or at the edge of the cloud, closer to the machine, to devices, machines, etc.
Yep.
That means, that's technical speak, that means we can scale better and more cheaply than others can.
Right.
It means we can continue to operate if power is lost.
Yep.
So if there's a bushfire, we can still go and shut down a gas grid.
Yep. Yep.
And we can communicate over any telecommunications backhaul, 3G, 4G, 5G, Ethernet, and that's our patent as well. So our little micro engine, which is our little brain, can say, I'm talking through 4G today, and this is how I talk. And so what you've got is a competitive advantage in a highly scalable platform that's quicker, faster, cheaper, and produces richer data for this wide range of artificial intelligence applications that are on our scale.
Yeah, one of the cool things about AI too is it gets better as it goes. The more data you feed into it, the better it gets. And so it sort of it tends to have these virtuous loops where it's sort of like, we've got the data, so we get better insights. That gives us a better product. A better product gives us access to more customers. That gives us more data, and around and around.
And it's a loop.
Yeah, yeah, which is it's a thing of beauty. Well, actually leads me on to the next question, Mohan, which was, you know, virtually every company operates in a competitive dynamic. You know, when you look around at the various markets you operate in, who do you see as your biggest rivals? And this might be a case of sometimes it's not an obvious one. It may just be that the incumbent way of doing things, although technologically inferior, is the biggest barrier because people are resistant to change. Or it might be someone else who's doing, at least on paper, similar things to what you guys are doing. For those of it, because it's not something that us in retail would ever have any direct exposure to. So can you sort of fill that image in for us? What's the competitive landscape look like?
The competitive landscape, Andrew, is really benign. So we have very little in the way of like competition, and really in Korea there are a couple of players that have a similar product, not as sophisticated as ours. In Korea, we're a recognized supplier to the government. We're on their procurement portal, and we're the only foreign company there. You know, and then when we look to other markets like the Middle East, like Taiwan, you know, highly advanced markets, Japan, you know, you don't come across too many that have got the breadth of offering that we've got, and does the same thing. Most players here are what we call vertically integrated. So you might have a gas meter manufacturer that would have their own software in it.
Yep.
But that's no good for you as a customer, because you want to have many different gas companies competing for your business. You don't want everyone's piece of software that you've got to integrate into it. And you know, so we're quite proud that you know, from the back streets of Melbourne here, you know, we've built a bit of technology, and you drive down the streets in South Korea and Seoul, and you see the Australian logo, you know, from one house to another, and it's pretty cool. So so we really don't have much of a competition at all.
That's great. Tell us a bit about the nature of the contracts. You said before it could be a 10-year kind of contract, and as I understand it too, there's an upfront sort of installation cost. And then after that, you have the recurring revenues that come from technical support and the like. Can you just sort of walk us through, I guess that's two different prongs, but just sort of the nature of contracts and how they're signed, and then the various sources of revenue?
Sure. Look, we have two business models. One is what we call a managed service. So this is what we have in South Korea, where we provide the full end-to-end product. For the customer, we bring the meter manufacturers, we bring the installers all together into one package. They're not our people, but we help the customer so that they're not putting together building blocks. In that situation, they do buy our little chip, our piece of hardware. We get, where they use our chip, we get a margin on their hardware. If they want to bring their own communication capable device, we'll charge an upfront fee when they first come onto our platform.
Okay.
And then we charge a monthly fee for the use of data. And that can vary from a rolling 12 months for some customers to 5 and 8 years for others.
Right.
The second business model is the licensing model, which is going to be the more prevalent model. So this is where the United Arab Emirates, where we've licensed a third party our technology. We charge them to install our platform. We charge them a license fee for access to our platform per annum. And in this case, it's gas meters. Every gas meter that comes onto our platform, we get paid $2.64 US. So what's that, about $3.50 Australian per year for 10 years. Right? And so if a gas meter, as it will today, come onto the platform, they'll be there for 10 years. And if a gas meter comes on net in 12 months' time, that meter will be there for 10 years. So when this guy comes out of his 10 years, there's a whole bunch still going through the cycle with us. So it tends to be very sticky contracts. And that recurring revenue is high margin business. It's 89% margin. So it's really very, very attractive for us.
Yeah, that is nice. So there's also, you tend to see some of these sort of curves cross as the business sort of scales up, where initially the SaaS, the ARR is tiny.
Yeah.
And then it builds up. And I'm looking at the recent deck here. So FY24, 13.4 million in revenue, 1.7 million in the SaaS revenue. Now, by the way, that's doubled in 2 years. So it's the growth is certainly in the recurring part. But do you see that as the business matures, that recurring element will become a larger and larger component of the overall revenue?
Yeah, and absolutely. So as the business grows, as the connected devices on the platform grow, your SaaS revenues will grow for two reasons. One is you've got more devices coming onto the platform.
Yep.
And the other is the devices that are there, the customers wanting more and more data. So the charge per device goes up, right? So if you go back about 4 years ago, we were charging about 20 cents. In Korea, we were charging about 20 cents a month for access to data. Yep. Today, we're charging 53 cents a month for access to data, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, I did notice that. So just for those that don't have it in front of them, so we've seen it's interesting, right? So in the year just reported, revenue dropped. It went from 16.2 down to 13.4. And then you realize, well, wait a second, then the EBITDA figure improved, the gross profit figure improved significantly. So was that all part of that churning out of the lower margin contracts? Perhaps they were more eager in the early stages just to get the client, but now you're, I guess, in a position you're able to call the shots a bit more. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, look, it's two things. One is when you're new into commercialization or into a market, you do things at a much lower market.
Yep.
And to get yourself set up, established, build a brand, build your channels, etc. And typically that's led with low margin hardware sales.
Yep.
We don't need that anymore. So we want to take it more into the software space. Yep. And the other is that the Chinese market has slowed down. But the bigger issue there is the payment cycles for government orders have extended from 30 and 60 days to 12 months and 2 years. Okay, as their economy is contracting, and it's very hard to get money out of China. Yeah. So we've mothballed our Chinese business. So you have that 12-month period where your revenues don't flash, but look underneath that and see what's happening. Exactly to your point, our gross margins are going up, our costs are coming down, our EBITDA losses are getting smaller and smaller, and we've got a clear path to profitability, and that's what we're driving.
Yeah, and it's always an interesting point well, for us as investors, and I'm sure for those on the inside of the company, the maths isn't obvious, until you've sort of seen it a few times, and you get this, particularly in a situation where the revenue component is growing fast, but the accelerated growth at the bottom line is surprising because you've got that relatively fixed cost base against much higher revenues and much higher margin revenues on the other component as well. Is as you sort of look out, you look into your crystal ball over the next 5 years, what is the kind of trajectory that you're hoping for? I mean, obviously the more the better, but what do you feel is seriously in play in terms of the kind of growth that you can get to and the point at which you sort of pass into sort of a position of generating free cash flow?
Okay. So you've asked me a really loaded question, Andrew. We don't put our forecasts
Okay.
forward numbers, and I don't want to start now. But
yep. I have to ask, but I respect the answer.
But I think it's a very fair question. So let me make these observations and these are statements made public. The vision that we have for this company is that over time we'll have millions of devices on our platform, not hundreds of thousands. That we will have a broad geographical spread. That this will be a global company. That where the majority of its earnings will come from software revenues that are recurring in nature and that are highly predictable and that are high margin. And the business model that we're building is one that hopefully will have growth and that will deliver more cash out the other end.
Yep.
So whilst I don't want to give forecast, take that as a principle and as an ambition that we've got for this company, which I think we've got every chance of achieving.
Yep, it's an excellent answer. I'll be honest with you, Mohan. I've said many times, I think a lot of companies tie themselves up by caving to the desire of our investors to give specific forecasts. And sometimes you can paint yourself into a corner and no one's really, so I definitely respect that stance. Well, let me ask you this. The other, and this is another challenge that we see with the guests that we have, is we live in a world where it just takes money to make money, right? You can't just land in a new geography. You can't continue to develop product. And all of this requires investment. And there's this natural tension between the shareholders who say, make money and put it in my pocket, versus spend money so you can make more money down the track. How do you think about striking that balance? And the second part is, well, actually, I'll get onto the second part next. What do you think is the appropriate balance there?
And actually, again, an excellent question. That's exactly the journey we've been on, right? So when we listed this company, the requirements of investors was growth, grow, get yourself as much capital as you can, and do something that's big.
Yep.
And about 5 minutes later, post-COVID, it was actually, we want profits and we want
we were witness to it all. It was crazy. Yeah.
And I guess the job of any chief executive is to understand the environment that they're in. Is to have a clear view of the strategic program we want to drive.
Yep.
Taking into account two audiences. One is achieving a market position, sacrifice that you never get it back.
Yep.
And also listening to what your owners want, what your shareholders want from you.
Yep.
And balancing those two, which is what we aim to do.
Yep. Yep. And that's all you can do, right? Again, it's one of those things. There's no right or wrong answer, but it's always interesting to sort of understand the philosophy.
And if I could add, I think I've been blessed with the cross section of share. So if I looked at the top 20 shareholders that we've got, they are highly sophisticated, highly experienced, and just been enormously supportive of the program that we've been on.
Yeah, that's fantastic. The other thing that's related to that, as a publicly listed company, you have access to capital, or a cost of capital. It tends to be cheaper than it is in private markets. But of course, you've still got access to debt financing. And when I had a quick look there, it seems as though that one of the paths that you've gone down is with convertible notes, which is always I'm surprised more people don't do it, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but there'll be people listening to this who are unfamiliar with that sort of form of financing and the pros and cons of all of that. Tell us about the structure, the sort of the capital sort of structure you've got, and why you thought that was the best way to go.
Yeah, and look, in all cases, it's about a balance, right?
Yeah.
So if you're an equity holder, you're a shareholder, and you've got a whole bunch of rights.
Yep.
You can, ultimately you can change the board, you can change the CEO, and you can have a very
Yep.
in a convertible note is a debt instrument. It ranks ahead of equity, if you like, and typically would get an interest rate. Interest rate attached. It's basically a loan that you're taking from an investor.
Mm-hmm.
And the only difference is that instead of repaying it in cash, the investor and sometimes the borrower and lender have the opportunity to convert it into shares.
Yep.
And so a good balance sheet management would see a company take advantage of both.
Yep.
Of getting shareholders and equity on the one hand, getting a modest level of debt on the other. That debt converts can convert into shares. What we tend to do is we try and marry the amount of convertible notes or debt that we've got with the R&D rebate that we get from the government. So we get a rebate on our R&D. It runs at $1.5 to $2 million in any given. In any given year, and we borrow against that.
Yes.
And that reduces dilution.
Yep.
To the other shareholders as well.
Yeah, that's nice. And it's always situation dependent, is it? If we're in an environment where the bulls were running and the share price was 5x, there's different options available, of course.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you play it as it comes. Yeah. So you mentioned 50 staff. How do you feel? Well, actually, give us a cross section of the people that work for X2M in terms of what's the breakdown roughly, of sort of developers versus sales and marketing versus operations. How does that all sort of carve up?
Yeah. So we are very tight on how we spend money, and we tend to not like corporate overheads. So we've got, if you like, out of that 50, we've got 4 corporate overheads.
Yeah.
I'm one, my CFO is another, chief operating officers another, and one support person. The rest are focused on either sales.
Yep.
So we've built our platform. So if you go back 4 or 5 years ago, we had about 70 people in it, right? And so we've built our platform. So we've got about 17 staff that are now running the platform. You make version releases, enhancements. The customers usually request different features that we charge the customer for. And the rest are up front end salespeople, customer management, project deployment people, and like I said, you've got 76 government and enterprise customers, and customer satisfaction, growing customer value, customer retention, and they're Commerce 101, and that's what most of our staff do.
Yeah, fantastic.
There's out of the 50, there's only 20 in Melbourne. All the others are in country.
Yeah.
And of course, the wage rates are a lot lower than here.
Oh, that's a good point. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me go to. There's one question that's come through. We did touch on this, but I'll give you the opportunity to elaborate if there's anything to say. Alex is asking, what distinguishes X2M from its competitors? Now, we did touch on that, but just anything you'd add?
Yeah. So Alex, there are 3 features that make us different to our competitors. The first one is that most players in this market can only have one type of machine on the platform, one protocol. We can have any sensor, meter, any machine, any device on the one platform, and we can have them talk to each other. Okay, so that becomes really, really important in a world of automation, artificial intelligence, public safety is involved. And I gave you the example of a smoke alarm, a smoke sensor in a big shopping centre detects smoke. a gas grid. And so you won't find many players that have got that functionality. And we've got a bunch of patents across 14 countries that protects that position. We can talk, we can communicate through any telecommunications, any cellular network, whether it be 3G, 4G, 5G, Sigfox, Ethernet. And we've got all our intelligence is held in what's called a micro engine. It's in the cloud. In a physical form, it's about the size of your thumbnail. It's a little computer. And it has the ability to say, I'm in Korea and I'm talking through 3G. I'm in Taiwan and I'm talking through 4G. And this is how we talk. It means that the customer doesn't have to take technology bets. If you're old enough, it means you don't have to decide whether it's VHS or Beta. And if you're really young, it means that we can evolve with new technology without having to take time. Yeah. And the third difference, and we've got a bunch of patents that fix that.
Yep.
And then the third difference is that we can keep our intelligence in the cloud centrally. So that's very good if you want to set up a billing.
Yep.
Right. It's global, it's everywhere. Or at the edge of the cloud, which means in clusters of, say, gas meters, and edge-based computing, has had a lot written about it, which means that we can scale, which means we're quicker in sending data.
Yep.
We're cheaper. We can run a whole municipality on a couple of laptops. So we tend to win the cost battle.
Yep.
Right? And when power's lost, we can continue to operate.
Yep.
Okay, so, most of our markets are either earthquake prone, a tsunami prone, or bushfire prone, and it becomes very.
Yeah, interesting. I wanted to go back to the expand part of land and expand here. So there's a number of companies we sort of come across, and I think as an investor, you're always looking at new customers, and new customers are vital. But it's easy to overlook the existing customer set, particularly when they're, as you say, very sticky and very long-lived contracts. What is the scope in regards to your existing customer set for them to increase their spend beyond? I'm sure you've got a bit of a lever in terms of pricing power, but putting that aside, or unless you want to talk about it, what opportunity is there with increased data or modules that might help grow revenue just from those existing customers?
It's significant, Andrew, and in fact, we can become a very substantial company just sticking to our existing customer base.
Interesting.
You see, take Sydney Water or Southeast Water here in Melbourne.
Yep.
They would roll out technology like ours because of the business case that sits alongside. Right. So, and say maybe the city of Seoul in Korea, they wanted to displace manual meter readers because it costs too much to have foot soldiers reading meters.
Yep.
Right. If that's their business case, then until the job is finished, you've still got foot soldiers.
Yes.
Right. And so once you start, you just have to keep going.
Yep.
Right? And it's not just the foot soldiers, it's all the extra work around it. Last month here in Melbourne, I got a gas bill that was 3 times my usual bill. So, and I'll share with the audience, it was $2,500. I thought it was a lot of money.
Yes.
So I rang the gas company and I said, this is a huge bill. What happened? They said, we estimated your bill, but you can go out there and send us a photograph of your meter reading and we'll give you the right bill.
Okay.
So I did that, and my bill came in at about $1,400.
Okay.
Right? Now, if you think about that, they've still got foot soldiers, so the guy just couldn't get into my house to read it.
Yeah.
Right? But they've also got a call center taking the call, so that's another expense.
Yep. Yeah.
We solved it.
Yep. Similar thing happened to me, actually. I wasn't as proactive though, so I need to step up. One of the well, it's good and a bad thing, I suppose, depending how you look at it. But one of the challenges with these pretty big, sometimes bureaucratic organizations is that it takes a while for anything to sort of happen.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing because once you're on the other side of the fence, it's, others have to face that challenge. But when I guess the question is, what does a typical sales cycle look like from point of first contact? And I know it will depend on unique circumstances and who the customer is, but give us a flavor of what kind of sales cycles that we should expect when winning new clients.
If you're new in this market, you should expect the sales cycle of 9 to 12 months.
Right.
The customer will want to do a proof of concept. They'll want to try all the stuff. They'll want to put them in the labs.
Yeah.
Once you're established, like we are, the sales cycle shrinks.
Yep.
And so when you've got a bunch of existing customers, you're getting orders every week,
right,
or multiple orders every week. You don't do trials and proof of concepts anymore because Taiwan, the government is about to start digitising water. So we're just talking to them and saying, look, why don't you get on a plane and we'll go and take you to our people in Korea.
Yep.
And they will take you through.
Don't take our word for it. Ask them.
In this case, so the sales cycle shrinks significantly, and today for us it's going to be under 3 months. The two things about that is when you start off,
yeah,
whether it be as an executive or an investor,
yeah,
and the other is when you're progressed and when you become more mature, then that becomes a barrier to entry for other players.
Yes.
So a new competitor coming in today, I'm comfortable that I've got 9 to 12 months warning that they're going to be on my tail, and I can manage my business appropriately.
Interesting. I guess so. Just some general questions to sort of wrap it up, Mohan. It's always interesting to sort of ask the MD the kinds of things that keep them awake at night. There's always 1,000 plates spinning, but what are the sort of the things that you're especially attuned to, from a risk awareness perspective? What are the things that not keep you up at night, but you know what I mean, keep you on your toes, perhaps?
Yeah, look, there are many. If you come to a risk situation, if you're moving into a new geography, you really need to do your due diligence. You need to work out what business model you're going with and how you de-risk it. And I've learned that you put the work in up front, then that's all for a whole lot of things. You worry about what markets. There's some markets I wouldn't go into,
right?
Because it doesn't have the governance and probity that I would like to see.
Yep.
I like markets like India that have got a Westminster legal system and English is an equal language.
Yep.
I worry. I think a lot about the speed of scaling up. Andrew, to one of your earlier questions.
Yep.
And because it's a category that we want to own, and I think we can.
Yep.
Right. But you don't want to trip yourself up.
Yep.
In the process of doing that. So you spend a lot of time, thinking about the speed of growth and making sure it's not too slow. The missed opportunity is not too fast, and you don't execute that well. Equity markets in this sector have been frustrating. If technology, pre-profit, micro caps have been dealt with pretty harshly over the last, since COVID.
Yep.
But I think that's an environment that'll potentially change. If you look, sticking my nose into your space, and really, if you look at equity markets more broadly and saying where would future value come from? Where would value sit? What's not recognized? Where can you find the next gem?
Yep.
From? I think technology companies emerging that are on a good growth trajectory, that have got access to large markets with a unique product, will have its day, and I want that to come quickly.
Yep.
We're trading at a 1x multiple, I think it's a matter of, I think in time we'll get recognised, and you spend time thinking about how long that, when will that be?
I think it's interesting from an investor's standpoint. It doesn't matter what the technology is. You have that Gartner hype cycle where there's something new arrives on the scene, and humans being humans go, wow, it's the, it's the best. And expectations go like this. And behind the scenes in reality, it takes time. It just takes time, right? Like the iPhone didn't come out of nowhere, and the internet didn't. I mean, the internet's the best example of all. If you look at 99, 2000, everyone was convinced that the internet was going to change the world. Well, they were right.
Yeah.
But they just ran too, like things just got carried away. And so my point is, on the other side of that, then you had I think it's called the trough of disillusionment. And I think it's often very rich hunting grounds for the savvy, far-sighted investor, because underneath it all, there is progress and there is potential. It's just that if your only focus is the share price, you go, oh, something's terribly wrong here. And it's like, well, maybe it's not so much the business, maybe it was the market just getting way ahead of itself. And so anyway, so I think it's very interesting. I guess another favorite question of mine is that part of your job is speaking to people like us, investors, stakeholders, etc. And I'm sure part of the frustration there is having to sort of hammer and the same points and articulate the story. I've asked some pretty dumb questions here today, but what are the things about X2M that you think that investors miss, much to your frustration, or just take longer than they should perhaps to have that light bulb moment?
Look, I think that one area that is probably missed, that will get recognized, is this. That whole space of data aggregation, analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning is going to be a way of life. It is going to drive productivity improvement, economic growth, and a whole bunch of things for a very long time.
Yeah.
And there will be many players. There'll be thousands of players in this space with different types of artificial intelligence engines or applications and so on.
Yeah.
The unsung hero in this, Andrew, in my view, will be that layer that produces the data to make all of that possible.
Yes, can't do it without the data.
Okay. So today, no one's looking at that layer.
Yeah.
They're looking at the next application.
Yep.
Right. Now they looked at the chip side of it with NVIDIA. NVIDIA wasn't an overnight success.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yep. And I think it's a matter of time before the market turns down and says, actually, who makes this possible? Who produces all this data? And are there winners that might be scale players?
Yes.
Okay. And for me, I'm an optimist, and my glass is half full. And I think that we have every opportunity to play in that space. And I think Australia as a nation, we produce good entrepreneurs, we produce good tech, we've got well-run businesses here, and I think we've got a real opportunity ahead of us.
Yeah. Wow. Mohan, I think that's the perfect place to end the conversation. It's been really illuminating, and really do appreciate your time. It's just so valuable to sort of go behind some of the sort of the terms and the numbers and really just understand exactly what's going on, the opportunity, and how it's being presented. So yeah, I really do appreciate your time, and we'd love to check in another year or so to see how things are going. And yeah, it looks like, as I said at the start, a very exciting time for the company. So we wish you all the best of luck with it all.
Thanks so much, Andrew, and for all of those that have taken the time to listen to us today. Thank you very much, and good luck.
Excellent. Okay, thank you so much.
Bye now. Bye bye.
Bye bye.